Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the AllSooners Postgame podcast, episode 206. It should be 207, but somebody got sick last week. Not last week. Somebody's sick right now, but I'm powering through. Guys, I told Randall coming up here I slept like 40 out of 48 hours on Wednesday and Thursday. I got something. It's mostly gone now. Still got some stuff in my head, but man, I'm just telling you. You do not want to be sick on a game week. However, here I am in the TU press box at Chapman Stadium. I was not going to break my streak. This is my, did I say 60th? No, 50th game in a row?
I was going to say, you did this to yourself.
I know.
All this streak talk.
And
disaster.
I immediately woke up and I was like, I'm going to break my streak because I talked about it. I shouldn't ever talk about a streak. Anyway, 50 whatever consecutive games, 234 in my career. Anyway, it's a lot of fun being here. Even when the score is 66-17, it's a lot of fun for us to be here. Guys, we got a lot to talk about. If we talked about every point, we'd be here for an hour, so let's not do that. Let's just talk about some performances. Defense had 5 interceptions. 5. What? What did I just say?
5 picks. It's we said this on the post-game wrap, guys. Last year, 1998 was evoked a ton. We've been all over the place through the first couple of games. We had to go back to, 1917 for the opener.
That's right.
We went to 2003 today against Texas Tech. That's the last time Oklahoma had 5 picks in a game. We're going to talk about something else. We're going to go back to 2012. We're going to go to 2000 with Nick Anderson and Curtis Fagan. How are those guys connected? We'll dive into all of that. But the biggest winner in all of this is A, Gentry Williams for winning the toss in his hometown, and B, everyone has forgotten that Jalil Farouk just absolutely coughed up the opening kickoff.
Yeah, what a bounce back by him. He had well over 200 all-purpose yards. Brent Venables said something about he's the first player in a long time or 100 years or school history or something to have 100 kickoffs and 100 receiving. I don't think that's right, but maybe I'll have to look at the notes, which I have behind me, and I'll do that when Randall starts telling you guys about how the offense performed today. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, like Hoover mentioned, as soon as the offense got back on the field after that original coughed up opening kickoff from Jalil Farouk, they picked up right where they left off against Arkansas State, and in the fourth quarter against SMU, where they were able to move the ball almost at will. I mean, we've seen, I think all 3 weeks, Oklahoma really likes to open the game with one of these deep shots out to Andrell Anthony. It seems like him and Dylan Gabriel have a great connection. He went over 100 yards again today. And I mean, from there, it seemed like Tulsa really could do nothing to stop Oklahoma's offense. I mean, Dylan Gabriel was sharp, over 420 yards, only threw 3 incompletions, more touchdown passes than incompletions. He did have an interception where he got planted in that one, but all around the passing game looked phenomenal. The running game, a little bit slow today, but again, why lean really heavily on that when you're just throwing the ball at will when these receivers are making almost every play you put up for them. So again, Oklahoma's rushing offense didn't look great, which is kind of similar to what we've seen the first 2 weeks of the season, but good enough to get the job done. Still saw some of those running backs get in, make some plays, score touchdowns. Javonte Barnes kind of came out of witness protection this week, which ended up actually putting Tawi Walker on the bench, which was interesting.
Okay, here's the Jalil Farouk note. This is from the Mike Houck official OU game notes. First Sooner with at least 100 receiving yards and 100 kickoff return yards in the same game. That's stunning. You think about Ryan Broyles, you think about DeMarco Murray had a 100-yard receiving game or 2 as a running back, right? You think about all the players that have been through here. Buster Rhymes going way back, right? I mean, there's been a million players come through here who could have that statistic, and Jalil Farouk's the first, so holy crap.
Well, it's an incredible statistic and an incredible performance. Don't take anything away from it, but wishbone meant not a lot of receiving yards happening, and Lincoln Riley didn't do special teams.
I said Buster Rhymes.
You had a very narrow period there in the middle where they were doing both throwing the football and the special teams. No, I'm kidding. It's a phenomenal performance from Jalil Farouk, and Mike Houck and the Oklahoma media team has had a ton of diving through the history books and trying to figure things out. As the Sooners, you mentioned in the post-game wrap, this doesn't mean that Oklahoma is suddenly a college football playoff contender. It doesn't mean that they'll be in Arlington. But Oklahoma has played 3 FBS teams. They have absolutely embarrassed 2 of them. And then the other one, while it was hinky and it was 14-11 in the fourth quarter, I I don't think any of us ever thought Oklahoma was in danger of losing that SMU game, especially the way they responded immediately after the one touchdown drive from the Mustangs last Saturday.
SMU wins today. They scored, 69?
Yep.
Arkansas State won today. They won big.
31-7.
31-7. So the teams that Oklahoma has played and beaten are kind of bouncing back. So that tells you something. You look ahead, Cincinnati, maybe we should push this to the end, but it's in my head right now, so it's got to come out. It's the way my mouth works. But you look ahead to next week, Cincinnati, 11 a.m., Nippert Stadium. We're going to be there. All three of us are going to be there. We've got our flights arranged. The hotels are set. Bags are not packed yet, but Cincinnati lost today. They didn't hold up their end.
Yeah, I was going to say noon for us, 11
That's
for
right.
everybody probably
That's right.
watching this, or most people watching this because we'll be on site. But yeah, Cincinnati, they've got a great defensive line. We'll preview it middle of the week. But Miami of Ohio still put 24 points up on the board in regulation, a touchdown in overtime. Oklahoma's run woes today were more schematic, a.k.a. Tulsa secondary not good, just throw the ball all over the yard, than I think actual running woes. But it should be a good test for offensive line next week. I'm not sure much else is going to be tested, though, in Cincinnati.
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
I think originally we thought that Emory Jones as a mobile quarterback might be able to kind of threaten the Oklahoma defense, especially after watching what Cardale Williams was able to do in his first few drives today. But again, seeing how Emory Jones in that offense performed today against a team like Miami of Ohio, it kind of takes off some of the shine of that of what we thought about them heading into today.
I thought Cardale Williams for Tulsa today was a real shot in the arm. Braylon Braxton apparently is too injured to play. Cardale Williams apparently is not too injured to play. He was the backup today. Roman Fuller comes in, throws 3 interceptions in the first quarter. Sooners are up 28-zip after one quarter. They bring in Cardale, and Cardale leads them. They outscore him 14-10. Tulsa outscored OU 14-10 in the second quarter. And what happens from it, he comes out in the third quarter, leads them down the field again, gets down to the goal line, drive stalls, they kick a field goal. Brent Venables said from that point on, they kind of stayed in their rush lanes better. They clogged the run fits were better. Everything was better because guys were, I don't know why. You get a mobile quarterback and you think it's 4-alarm fire and all hands on deck, but the way Brent said was it kind of got everybody, and I don't know, they made some calls on the sideline. Ted Roof from the coach's box. They made some calls, made some changes, made some tweaks and adjustments, and from that point on, they shut Tulsa down.
We haven't done a lot of this conversation I'm about to have this year because it's been mostly great performance. Now let's nitpick. There was absolutely a blown coverage by Makari Vickers on Williams' first touchdown pass.
True freshman, Makari Vickers.
True freshman Makari Vickers.
It was an interesting time to roll a couple of true freshmen.
I was going to say,
Kobe Johnson was in the game at that point too.
Reggie Pearson got absolutely torched on a double move. Not a wheel route, a double move. Those of you that play football. And that was something that I think Reggie Pearson just mentally went to sleep and was like, I'm going to lay the wood on somebody on fourth down. Yeah. But two of those 3 scoring drives that Williams had, like you guys mentioned, it was a lot of backups because the game was already out of hand, and not just backups, but Makari Vickers and Jacoby Johnson, that's not the second string guys. So yes, I understand that Brent Venables will always tell you that there's a ton to clean up and things like that, and the rush lanes, that's the rotation of the guys that have been playing a ton. But the secondary, the busts, guys moving around to some different spots there, and while it's not excusable, in Cincinnati, Gentry Williams, Kenai Walker, Woody Washington, those will be the guys on the field probably not having a Makari Vickers bust.
It was an interesting time to put your freshman corners out there and your backups. And to be fair, this thing was, without the fumble on the kickoff return, who knows what it would have been. But could have been 35-0 in the first quarter. I guess where I'm going with this is the guys who are out there are like, this is too easy. Here we go, 73-0 again. This is Arkansas State all over again. Maybe there's a little bit of distraction by the starters and the Reggie Pearson bust. And then the freshmen are thrown out there. All right, you guys, we're in good shape. Let's get the freshmen out there and see what they can do. They get all wide-eyed and they don't know what's going on. The Makari Vickers was just, it was a simple. He looked him off, pump faked one way and threw it right at him, and he was nowhere near the ball.
After the game, Venables just like, it's cover 2.
Yeah.
Vickers wasn't playing cover 2. Simple as that.
Yeah. What do you guys think about Drake Stoops today? Led the team with 8 receptions, led the team in catches, Went over 1,000 career yards, so congratulations to him for that. And all he did was catch 2 touchdowns in the first half. Great day.
I think that Drake Stoops today, what we saw out of him is really when Drake Stoops is at his best, what you can get from him. I think he served as a great complementary wide receiver, really attacking the underneath and the shorter routes, while you have guys like Jaden Gibson, guys like Andrell Anthony, guys like Nick Anderson who are really attacking deep downfield. And when Tulsa's going to sell out to stop those guys because Nick Anderson has 3 touchdowns, because Andrell Anthony is catching bombs on the first play of the game, it's going to leave plays open for Drake Stoops underneath where, these schemed plays where they're rolling DG out towards Drake. I mean, that worked to perfection today. I think that's how they got both of those Drake Stoops touchdowns. At least one of them was DG rolling out right to him. And that really short yardage slot receiver stereotype. Drake Stoops really fits that mold perfectly of the great hands, toughness, and doing all the little things right. It might not have been the most flashy performance like a Nick Anderson, like a Jalil Farouk, but it was really important. He got the hard yards and still came out with 2 touchdowns.
94 career catches, 1,000 career yards. That tells you it's the ultimate possession receiver. 10 yards a catch, baby. 10 yards a catch. Just move the chains.
And his numbers last year, I think, reflect that too.
Yep, absolutely. Career numbers as well. We talked about Stoops. We talked about Farouk. Let's talk about the star of the game.
The most important thing, 38 more receptions for Austin Stogner, and you're
38.
there.
Got 38 to go and only 9 games to get there. One more catch for Austin Stogner.
They've got 10 games. This team's going bowling.
Okay, yeah, they're going
At least.
going to a bowl.
Have you seen the Big 12? This team's going bowling.
Nick Anderson, I'm sorry to draw the comparison, but there were times that there were 3 catches, 3 touchdowns. You guys mentioned it in the post game. He looked like Randy Moss, going up, getting the ball, and still moving in the direction of the end zone, like you ain't gonna stop me. And I asked him about that. I asked him specifically about putting on muscle, adding strength, and the sacrifice and the power and the off season and the summer and the heat and the Jerry Schmidt. He said Jerry Schmidt is what did this. So he like one of his post game high fives or his post touchdown high five celebrations was to Jerry Schmidt, because he's like, Coach, thank you for helping me get this way. Dude was running through tackles.
Yeah.
Going up and getting the ball, running away from people, and then running through tackles.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like because he is Rodney Anderson's little brother, when he considered going to Oregon, comes to Oklahoma, I think he kind of went under the radar a little bit, because everyone's like, yeah, of course, it's Rodney Anderson's little brother, sick, go on. You saw today why he has been raved about. We had heard through the scrimmages that he was fantastic, especially as they get into full contact. And on 2 of those 3 touchdowns, the first one, not really a contested or anything. Dylan Gabriel finds him wide open, but he put on a good move to get behind the defense. And by the time the defender had caught up, he was pretty much in the end zone. But the second one, he catches it at about the 25-yard line, spins outside, evades 1 tackler, has to keep his balance along the sideline, and then basically has to high step his way in to avoid a diving guy for the second tackler. Then straight up the Jack Starled 50-yard bomb, which it was nice to see one receiver actually led as opposed to having to wait for the football.
Ryan grades on a hard curve.
Well, Texas's defense ain't Tulsa. Sorry, guys. That's look at the future. That's neither here nor there. But because he was led instead of getting tackled, he was able to power through a tackle. Yep. And you saw that playing through that contact on 2 of the 3 touchdowns. And hey, like I said, we're going to go to Curtis Fagan now. 2000 Baylor. Curtis Fagan's the only other wide receiver at Oklahoma to catch 3 touchdowns on exactly 3 receptions. That's exactly what Nick Anderson did today, as he became the first OU freshman ever to catch 3 touchdown passes.
And I was just going to say, being down there on the field, getting to see Nick Anderson, you really see how big he is. And like Ryan mentioned, when guys are trying to arm tackle him at the 25 when he's making that second catch, it's not. A defensive back is not going to arm tackle Nick Anderson, I promise.
Yeah.
That kid is big, and when he's out there next to Jaden Gibson, those are both really tall, long, big-bodied receivers. You can really see the difference in the body style, even though Jaden Gibson's 6'5", 6'6", Nick Anderson's around the same height at 6'4". Nick Anderson is a lot bigger in his upper body. I mean, his chest, his arms are a lot thicker than Jaden Gibson. I'm not calling out Jaden Gibson at all. I'm just discussing. I mean, that's what makes Nick Anderson so special, is that strength that he has in addition to the height and the ability to run after the catch. I think that makes him. It's hard to bring down. He's hard to go up and jump with, and I think that think that the size really, obviously, it played well for him today.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Dylan Gabriel, 28 of 31, 421 yards, 5 touchdowns, was not sacked. 28 of 31. Have any drops today?
Well, the one pass hit Blake Smith right in the face.
Oh,
No, that was Arnold.
That was Arnold. Yeah, he
Arnold.
had.
I don't think he had any drops. I think
He had one miscommunication where I think this one, we talked about last week, there were a couple of miscommunications. One was the LV Bunkley-Shelton, one with Gavin Freeman, that Gabriel was pretty frustrated with the wide receivers. He had one today that I think he just missed it. And it was the only throw that he just missed over the middle to Bunkley-Shelton, who might have been a touchdown. But other than that, Gabriel was electric today.
He was fantastic. He was confident in throwing the ball. And that's something that I noticed a couple of weeks ago and asked him about. Are you more confident this year? Oh, yeah, much more confident. He's putting the ball on time, but not necessarily on the mark. And that's what Ryan's talking about, is he's still underthrowing guys who are open for touchdowns or who are in space to get themselves open for touchdowns if the ball is thrown in the right area out in front of them. And then Jackson Arnold comes in, throws one pass, 50-yard touchdown. It's a perfect throw. And it's like, oh, yeah, our quarterback stinks. No, your quarterback went 28 of 31 for 421 and 5 touchdowns. He just doesn't throw it with as much speed and velocity and distance as Jackson Arnold. I think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah,
we're seeing a 5-star, blue-chip, gifted quarterback and a guy who's a great college quarterback.
Dylan Gabriel has completed about 82.5% of his passes this year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And here's the difference between this year and last year. And there's a big difference, and it's huge for Oklahoma, and it's why Dylan Gabriel is not in danger of being Spencer Rattler. All of the underthrows we're talking about today were completions. They're hitting the guys in the hands. Yep. He's given his wide receivers a chance to go and make contested plays. The difference in what we're talking about would be that Andrew Anthony, he had an incredible day. 4 catches, 112 yards, biggest one 55 yards, stretching the field. Awesome.
First play of the game.
His first play of the game should have been a touchdown. If Dylan Gabriel had just a little bit more arm strength, I think. And then the second one, I think also in the first quarter, going to, is that the north end? Whatever, we're turning around.
Still the first quarter, yeah.
Still the first quarter. It also probably would have been. He had an awesome Jaden Gibson's one catch to him. I would have liked it to be a little bit further down the field, but on the first glance, the safety might have been over the top of it, gave Gibson a chance. Gibson caught it here. If he had caught it here, maybe he has a chance to catch and run away from one of those two guys. This is the nitpickiest of nitpicking, but you saw it with Jackson Arnold. And here's why there's no quarterback controversy. Here's why Dylan Gabriel has continued to hum this offense along, because Dylan Gabriel is consistently authoritative. He is either finding the first read immediately or going through his progressions, hitting his checkdowns. Jeff Lebby loved that aspect of his game today. There is no controversy. Jackson Arnold's going to be phenomenal of what we saw out of that Anderson play. That's just the difference between, I think you put it perfectly, a really, really, really good college quarterback and a 5-star / that's why Dylan Gabriel's not going to win a Heisman this year.
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly when you said Dylan Gabriel missed a little bit here and a little bit there, and then Jackson Arnold comes in and puts it right on the money for a touchdown. That's kind of the difference. Now, Jackson's not going to be able to do that every time he comes in the game. Every time he throws a pass, you saw the throw to Blake Smith. It was awful. Dude, he's 2 feet from you. Why are you bouncing it off his face mask at 75 miles an hour? So he's got some growing to do. He'll grow into that role, and I predict he'll be an All-American, certainly an All-SEC type contender at the quarterback position. Any other offense you guys want to get to? Was the offensive line mostly good today?
Mostly good. The one, it wasn't a sack, but I think the interception, I think the underthrow happened because it was not. We talked in the first game against Arkansas State where Tommy Walker missed a blitz pickup that should have been a touchdown to Andrew Anthony, instead it was a completion. Today, this is why you have to have those blitz pickups. Someone was left free. Dylan Gabriel gets absolutely obliterated, and Gavin Freeman didn't really have a chance to work back to the football. I don't put that on Gabriel or Freeman, really. That's either blitz protection or offensive line. I'll have to go back and find it. The running game, Jeff Lebby talked about it after the game. He said that they would love to be balanced, but the matchups today, and this is where I'm going to talk. Jeff Lebby was very polite, coach speak, no bulletin board material, very respectful. The weakness of this Tulsa defense is the secondary. They're 115th in the country. Last week, Washington threw for 454. Anyone playing Tulsa this year is just going to say, why run the ball when it is like knife through butter through the air? And that is why the running game never really took off. And Jeff Lebby said that he didn't get into a rhythm play calling. It didn't let the offensive line get into a rhythm on the ground. Why? Because they're throwing for 6,000 yards if they wanted it today.
Gabriel, you can't fault his interception either. I mean, like Ryan said, didn't have all the room to throw. A little bit of pressure there. And Gavin Freeman turned around and looked just a little bit after the DB, DeMarco Jones, and DeMarco Jones made a phenomenal interception, inches off the ground. Mm-hmm. That's what I saw anyway. It's what it looked like on the replay. If you guys saw something different on TV, make a comment in the comment section down below.
I was the one thing I wanted to mention about the running game is I think the personnel that they're putting in the backfield is interesting. I mean, we saw Tawi Walker rip off a 100+ yard game last week, and then today he had I don't know the exact numbers, but not very many carries, if any. Maybe one or two.
How about zero?
Yeah, I don't remember seeing any carries from him. It was we saw Gavin Sawchuk a few times, but it was a lot of Javonte Barnes and a few Marcus Major reps today.
A lot of them were together.
Yeah.
Barnes and Sawchuk were both
the two backs.
Two backs on either side of the quarterback.
And they threw a pass on fourth down actually to Sawchuk. Mm-hmm. It was a design play. It worked out really well. Barnes, to me, I didn't think he looked as fast as I remembered him looking last season whenever he did get out into the open field, and maybe that's just, again, because there wasn't a ton of open space. They weren't in the open field a ton, but not many explosive runs from that group, and it'll be interesting to see going forward in the season how that kind of continues to progress.
And as much as Jeff Lebby talked about not getting into rhythm, play calling wise, and the game plan being very pass heavy, he did say chunk plays in the run game is a huge spot where they can make a lot of room up, and that's something he wants to see. And next week they'll need to be a little more balanced. Mm-hmm. We mentioned Cincinnati. I don't think the offense, Emory Jones is probably going to put a ton of pressure on Oklahoma, but that defensive line is legit. Yes. Like, the defensive line is not the issue for Cincinnati, and it'll be a really good test, especially because Savion Byrd, we saw a little bit of rotation. Mm-hmm. It was Caden Green in the game as opposed to Byrd, the first guy at left guard. Troy Everett also worked in. Jacob Sexton is back. Jeff Lebby said that allowed Caden Green to slide to the inside. That's the spot he's going to play. Savion Byrd got rolled up on like one of the 80,000 PATs that Oklahoma had. It was in the first quarter. He went to the injury tent, and then he had a towel over his head, and I told Hoove, we've got to ask this pretty quick, because the way that the towel's over his head, I can't see his reaction, but it was like head and hands the entire way back to the locker room. I was like, that's the reaction of a guy that like doesn't feel good. You know what I mean?
Or got some bad news.
Yeah, and Brent Venables after the game said he's fine.
Got the question off.
Yeah, he basically is like, he's fine. Which is great. He was in street clothes by halftime, and kind of he walked under his own power into the locker room after the game. We'll get a further update on Tuesday, but something to watch if Savion Byrd's not a go. I mean, Deshaun McCullough was hopeful to play today, and he did not even look like he was going to touch the field, so we'll see. But it might be Troy Everett and Caden Green, and the offense moved when Caden Green was at left guard.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not thinking about something last year, but I think we learned something about Brent Venables today. He does not like talking about certain injuries. How's Savion Byrd? He's good.
Good.
It looked like he got hurt. Well, that was it. That was his answer. Yeah. I said, okay. I guess we're done talking about that. Yeah, if he's in street clothes in the second half, not coming back in the game, there's something going on there, obviously. But like Ryan said, the offensive line may have found some kind of combination with Caden Green, freshman.
And Troy Everett, like Ryan said, was working in after Caden Green at that left guard spot. He also came in as the second center. So Troy Everett played fine, showed that versatility. But like you guys mentioned, Caden Green, his impact was noticeable. I mean, us down there on the field, we all looked at each other and we said, Caden Green looks good. I mean, you could tell the way that he was playing. He was hungry. He wanted to be out there. And him and Troy Everett, honestly, when Everett was playing center and Caden Green was playing left guard, they looked really good next to each other. That's a duo that OU has going forward, maybe after this season. That there's a lot of promise there with those two young offensive linemen.
So we talked about a young freshman quarterback. We talked about a freshman offensive lineman. Let's talk about some freshmen on defense. Peyton Bowen gets his first start, and PJ Adebawore gets more snaps than he got last week, which was more than he got the first week. They brought him out for interviews, brought him out for postgame interviews, which you can find at AllSooners.com. We've got 3 or 4 minutes with PJ. PJ stats: 1 quarterback sack. I said 1 quarterback sack. That matches the season total for the entire team through the first 2 games. 2.5 tackles for loss. That young man, he provides an impact when he's on the field.
I'm sorry, Ryan. I'll let you talk after
No,
this.
go for it.
But the one thing I wanted to make that I noticed, Cardell Williams.
Down on the field again.
Yes, on the field. Cardell Williams was kind of scrambling away from all the OU defenders whenever they put pressure on him. They did it, as we've seen with the past 2 quarterbacks, OU did a good job of putting pressure on him. It was hard for them to actually get home to him. He was running around. Again, Cardell Williams is a really mobile quarterback. As soon as PJ got in the game, and as soon as PJ got past the offensive line and had a shot at Williams, Cardell Williams had no shot at escaping PJ Adebawore like he did from escaping some of these every one of the other Oklahoma defensive linemen, whether it was Isaiah
down
Coe,
on him like Spider-Man.
Downs. Yeah, I mean, it was
like it was out of the sky. It was like, where did he come from?
Cardell Williams had
PJ.
no chance at escaping that play, and that's the length, that's the size, the strength. I mean, Ethan Downs, it has been great this season, but Ethan Downs would not have been able to make the exact same play because he doesn't have the same length, he doesn't have the same quickness that PJ does coming out of that, off of beating the offensive lineman. I mean, we saw that today. Ethan Downs was chasing Cardell Williams around in the backfield. As soon as PJ got in the backfield, Cardell Williams was on the ground.
Yeah, let's just analyze it like sports science for a second. Ethan Downs takes, or R. Mason Thomas or Reggie Grimes or whoever takes 4 steps. Measure how far they've gone in 4 steps. Now do it with PJ Adebawore. Measure his 4 steps and look how far he's gone. He's
a lot longer.
He's got those longer arms.
His arms. From being down there on the field, his arms are insanely long.
Yeah.
It's
He's
noticeable.
got like a 7'4" wingspan.
The description I always have of PJ is if Thunder general manager Sam Presti could build a defensive end,
Yep.
Yeah.
it would be Adebawore. Because if you followed the Thunder long enough, they want wingspan way longer than your actual height. That's what PJ brings to the table.
Guys, I didn't notice this until just now. I'm looking at the official game book. 15 tackles for loss.
Tied there, or the last time they had that many was against Baylor in the Big 12 championship game.
Wow. See, that's what Ted Roof wants. That's what Brent Venables wants, is disruption. The offense to turn around and get up and try to go back to the huddle and say, what the hell are we supposed to do? We're, 2nd and 12. Now it's 3rd and 15. That's what the coaches are shooting for, not, grab a guy and stand here and read and lean on him and hope he runs into you so you can tackle him for a 1-yard gain. That's what we saw the first 2 games. Not a lot of that. I know we're talking game plans and strategies and X's and O's and all that. But you saw guys today intentionally play violent. I didn't see that the first 2 games.
Yeah.
Not from the front.
3 sacks in total. I still think... I don't know if I'm worried about the Oklahoma pass rush or I just think it's incomplete. I think their 2 most gifted pass rushers are probably going to end up being, by Texas, R. Mason Thomas and PJ Adebawore. We haven't seen a whole lot of those guys, and R. Mason Thomas was held out of the first game. They sure haven't gotten the amount of snaps I think they'll play against Texas. The good sign today is that as the game went on and as Tulsa got worn down, Oklahoma was still able to platoon those guys, and I think they got more and more effective. I think you're looking at a group that may not put up gaudy numbers through the first 3 quarters. I think this Oklahoma pass rush against everyone except maybe Texas on their schedule is going to be able to close games, though. Cincinnati's offensive line, not good. Iowa State just got beat by Ohio.
Miami, Ohio?
No, Cincinnati got beat by Miami, Ohio. Iowa State lost to
actual Ohio.
The Bobcats.
The Bobcats, yeah.
Shout out Norman North. Pipeline there at one point. And so until Texas, I think that Oklahoma's going to be able, in the last 20 minutes of a game as they're closing the 3rd quarter and starting the 4th, between Bothroyd, Trace Ford, who snubbed out a screen and almost had a pick 6 today, Ethan Downs holding up in the run game, Marcus Stripling's been playing really good snaps early in games, R. Mason Thomas, PJ Adebawore. I think that Oklahoma, via platoon, is going to be able to close out some of these games that are going to be a little bit closer.
By the way, Peyton Bowen, I mentioned him earlier, team high, 2 passes broken up today.
Team high, 2 dropped interceptions because everybody else caught theirs as well.
That's true. That's a positive and a negative.
We kid.
So 2 things, responding to what both of y'all were saying. You were talking about the pass rush, and I wanted to mention a defensive lineman who I don't think he's been making as deep of an impact on the pass rush, but I think from what I've seen, Jonah Laulu has been an outstanding run defender. I mean, when he's down there in the trenches, he hits people hard. I mean, he's not
pushes them down.
Yeah. I love that.
He's not someone that's easily moved around when he's playing down there on the interior, and I thought that he's been really good. I thought he was good today in run defense. I thought he has been all season. And Peyton Bowen, one of those pass breakups was on 3rd and goal that you mentioned in the first drive of the second half, I think. Tulsa's first drive of the second half with Cardell Williams, the one where their drive stalled and they had to kick a field goal that we talked about earlier. The final play on 3rd down, Cardell Williams rolls out a play that had been working for Tulsa up to that point on that drive and the previous drives. Peyton Bowen's right there, and like Hoof said, should have been an interception right off of his hands. He made the great play though. I mean, he read the pass just like a receiver and was in better position than the receiver to make a play.
I'll repeat what everybody said about him. Football's easy for him.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
And just look at his reaction about those pass breakups. Peyton Bowen, if he were sitting here right now, would tell you, I probably should have 2 interceptions. We talked to him after the SMU game. He helped force the fumble. Him and Kenai Walker comboed for that against Arkansas State. Obviously blocked the punt against SMU. He had told us he wants the pick against Tulsa. He was in a great spot twice. Great work breaking on the ball. And I thought really great work by, talk about the 5 interceptions. Let's go back through them. Gentry Williams.
Just going to do that.
How many times have we seen a ball get overthrown like that and the Oklahoma defensive back is not looking at the ball and it just lands 5 feet away from him?
Yep.
Didn't happen today. I thought Kendall Dolby, while the ball was underthrown, the receiver was still on his back, was able to finish through some contact. There's a great photo. We've used it a bunch at AllSooners.com already. Just go look at it. It's really nice. Also read the story, Tim. Great story, but good photo. Danny Stutzman, linebacker, tips it to himself, gets off, takes off running. Key Lawrence, another airmail, but because he was looking at the quarterback and trying to find the football, he got it. And then Trace Ford, we talked about the screen. All 5 of those are plays that are not givens over the last 5 or 6 years because the corners aren't turning their heads around. The safeties aren't turning their heads around.
That's right. Let's talk Stutzman real quick. I think we can wrap up with this.
I got a great video of his pick 6, by the way.
Check out the highlight video. He's down there on the field, shooting from the sidelines, from the end zones. That's right.
Yeah, you can see his military martial arts celebration in the video. So definitely check that out.
Check that out. What do you think? Play of the day? I chose it as the play of the day because we had a great photo of it. I think Nathan Fish from the Oklahoman was shooting today, and we used their photos, USA Today Network. So that's the one I picked for the actual game story was Danny Stutzman, play of the day. He also had 9 tackles, tackle for loss. 2 tackles for loss, 30-yard interception return for a touchdown. I mean, National Player of the Week last week, National Player of the Week this week? No, probably not, but still, he makes a good argument for it.
I think one thing that every time I watch Danny Stutzman play this season, my thinking is his draft stock is just shooting up because he is fast. This season he's been great in coverage. I mean, he's flying around the field and just laying the wood on people. I mean, in run defense, he will fly downhill and kill someone in run defense. I mean, he is not afraid to lay the wood on guys. And then when he's dropping back in pass coverage, he's getting his hands out, making interceptions like he did today. I mean, he's been, honestly, through 3 games, I think he's been the best player on the team. I think that's exactly right. Because the wide receivers are all really good, but not all the time. He's good, really good all the time. Yeah.
It's Stutzman v. Gabriel for me for best player through the first 3 games.
I agree.
That's what you want, right?
Yep.
This is not a shot at anybody, but you want your vocal leaders and your captains to also be the best players on your team.
Yes.
It hits a little different when that's the case, and Dylan Gabriel's been the best offensive player, and I don't think it's been particularly close.
Right.
Danny Stutzman's been the best defensive player. It might be a little bit closer because you got so many people making plays, but the other important thing, we talked about this a ton and hammered it a ton in the preseason. A ton of unproven depth for this Oklahoma team. So they needed to take steps forward and they needed to be that sharp immediately so they could separate in some of these non-conference games and get those guys in. They've done that in 2 of the 3 non-conference games, and you saw, because they had depth, they were able to close against SMU. They also aren't having to log a ton of second half snaps on Danny Stutzman in either the first or third game of the year. That's a guy that's going to be that athletic, looks faster. I totally agree with you, Randall.
Yeah.
And that's a guy that hopefully, from an Oklahoma perspective, if he stays healthy, should be a lot fresher to finish off these fourth quarters because Oklahoma's going to start having to play some real games. I know the Big 12, 2 of the 3 weeks, it's not looked pretty, but this Oklahoma team's not perfect.
Texas is coming.
We'll find out about the offensive line next week. We'll find out about the pass rush in a couple of weeks. Texas looks good. Letdown spot against Wyoming. It's college football. I'm not going to hold that against a bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds after you just went in and controlled a game against Alabama. That's just what the sport is.
You know, the best way I can describe Stutzman, they say, are you processing the game faster? As the more you play, the faster you process it. Yeah. I don't think he's processing the game anymore. I think he's reading and reacting, and I think he's having fun playing football. That's as simple as you can say it. He's playing football at an extremely high level. He recognizes stuff instantaneously and knows where to go. And he's not perfect. He missed a tackle today that was, glaringly obvious, but yeah, for the most part, he's been fantastic. Anything else we need to get to?
Jaron Knack forced a fumble today on a sack. That was a pretty nice play. Was able to.
I still didn't even see that play.
It was down.
Fourth quarter?
I think it was in the fourth. It was definitely second half, late in the game. They were near the goal line, and I think it was a third down play. Anyway, he gets back in the backfield, sacks Cardell Williams, and I think Cardell maybe was just holding the ball with one arm, and Knack was maybe able to trap his arm against his body, knock the ball out. But it was a nice play. Again, he's mobile quarterbacks are hard to bring down, so getting there, knocking the ball out, good play by Knack.
The truth is, Ryan and I, we don't have much time to actually watch the football games that we cover, right? We're posting constantly throughout them. If you're on the live blog, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, get into that live blog, AllSooners.com. And also, barring just a Wi-Fi meltdown within 5 minutes of the game being over, Hoove's game story is out. My 3 quick observations are out. That's why they're quick observations. I think the only other cleanup, maybe not even cleanup, 2 things Brent Venables nailed down on, and Ted Roof talked about in the postgame. Randall touched on one of those, the run fits that that was the first thing Brent Venables was like, can get better. He's like, I got this big list. Run fits was one of them. That will be tested a little bit with Emory Jones. Emory Jones is athletic enough to get out and run. He doesn't always do it, though. He wants to win from the pocket. He cost them in the overtime. He threw the interception. He probably could have walked in for a touchdown. The other, Brent Venables talked about the third down defense. I think the third down defense on 3 drives, Tulsa's 3 scoring drives, is probably not great. Tulsa ended, 8 for 19 or 9 for 18, one of the two. Oklahoma was fine overall, but those were the 2 things that Brent Venables nailed down on, so I'm sure that'll be a big talking point on Tuesday when he talks.
I think that a lot of that third down struggles, I think we saw a lot of that when Cardell Williams came into the game, and the Sooners weren't necessarily, I don't want to say they weren't prepared, but it was
an adjustment from what Roman Fuller was, which was a statue who was willing to give the ball to anyone and everyone, preferably wearing white and red.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah. Cardell Williams changed the game. Oklahoma changed it back.
Yep.
It's 28-0, 35-14.
17.
35-17 at halftime.
38-17.
38-17. Yeah,
an important thing to know.
Never stopped.
I know that this game was pretty out of hand for most of it, but the Dylan Gabriel interception, if Williams had come back down and Tulsa had scored, the game was not going to be in danger, but Tulsa was going to be able to hang around that 2-3 score where another bad play might have put some pressure on. Oklahoma's defense immediately forced a 3 and out, and then the offense shot right back down the field. Game was over, and I don't think Tulsa quit today. Credit to Tulsa. I didn't ever see a moment where they were just like, But you could tell the body language on the sideline was there was no rallying the troops to try and tell themselves that they're going to get back in it, which Oklahoma, basically what I'm trying to say is they had one bad play and immediately responded and put their foot on the throat. And that's what Brent Venables said he wanted when he was hired.
Right. And the defense had a 3 bad series, and they immediately finished up the game stronger than ever.
Yep.
So great game. Sooners are 3-0. They went through non-conference play like a sieve. Impressive performance there by OU. Next week, guys, we're going to be in Cincinnati. We're going to be doing this bad boy from Cincinnati. We're going to be getting some Skyline chili. We're going to be eating at some Pompilios.
My first true road game.
His first true road game. It's his first trip to Tulsa, he said. He's
time?
never been to Tulsa. Never. Not the University of Tulsa.
The city.
The city of Tulsa. So we're breaking him in. First road game. Crazy. Who knew? Hey, listen, we appreciate you guys listening to the AllSooners podcast and watching on my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. We'll be back on Wednesday with all the Monday and Tuesday interviews, reaction, and all that good stuff from players and coaches and Brent Venables. You can find that podcast on Spotify, Google, iHeart, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. If you have an Amazon-enabled device, just say, Alexa, play the AllSooners podcast. I think that's it, isn't it? Oh, YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. What else, boys?
Go to AllSooners.com. Just
AllSooners.com. It's got it all.
Just do the thing.
For Ryan Chapman, for Randall Sweet, I'm John Hoover. See you guys.